This is Tammy Brunk, and I am here introducing to you for the first time the I'm Possible Headlines Project. Now, this is something that I've been dreaming into for almost 2 years now, and I wanted to share a little bit about it here because there's a little Facebook group that's forming, and I've been kind of talking this up in my newsletter and in other forums, and just wanted to give a little overview for anybody who just happens upon this video or anyone from any extended circles who is a little curious about how this works, what the process is. We just wanted to give a little bit of background and history. So basically, almost 2 years ago now, I received a vision where an indigenous grandmother showed me a practice where I was to look into a bowl of water. I was to scry, is another way to say that, where I would visualize seeing in a bowl of water that these headlines, these news headlines, would rise to the surface. And those news headlines would be headlines that were very, very positive, that they were impossible headlines that had come true. And I remember very clearly still that the ones that came through for me had to do with issues I cared deeply about. They were Israeli military apologizes to Palestinians. Oil company executives say fossil fuels too costly. Renewables are the future. World's oceans biodiversity increases by 20%. So these are some issues that I care about. So these are some of the headlines that I would see. So this is something that I have practiced over the years. And over the years also, it's become kind of a meditation to ask, well, how is it that we can really hone this practice of looking for, first of all, looking for those impossible headlines when they actually appear? Because what I began to recognize is that they really are all around us all the time, but we tend to see them and say, that's really cool, and then forget about it, which is often how we live our lives. So in any case, the intent of this project and of the kind of curriculum or the game that emerged from this vision is to help us to begin to really dream into these impossible headlines and to be able to find them more and more and anchor them with our intentions and feed them and cultivate our minds in a particular way to really ask, what do I want personally? What do I want in my world? And to go through kind of a clear process of looking at that. So here are some headline examples, some examples of some of those that when we first saw the headline, if you think back to the moment when you first saw this headline, when you first recognized this reality, if you recall how in that moment, there's a moment of shock, like I couldn't believe that was possible. That's amazing. How did this happen? And then it becomes normalized. So it becomes our new reality. This is just how things work. So the first thing to understand about that is that once you wrap your mind around it, it helps you to understand that much more is possible than what we can presently conceive. And that our minds are almost, they become very accustomed to miracles and just normalizing it very quickly. So part of our game here is to learn to see these miracles when we see them and to take more of a moment to really acknowledge, to experience gratitude, to anchor in our bodies that experience of, wow, this thing I thought was impossible is possible. So these are just a few. It's been a long time now, but I know when I first woke up to those headlines that Barack Obama was elected, that was an amazing thing to me. When Pope Francis at this point has become very known for his stances that are very progressive. But I know when he first started coming out and really showing a different side of the Vatican than I had seen in my lifetime, it blew my mind. And so, I want to continue to recognize and acknowledge these are benchmarks that are showing us that the culture is changing. As imperfect as they are, there is this shift and an activation that's happening. So let's hone our attention on that. U.S. Supreme Court makes same-sex marriage a right. That was something, 10 years ago, would we have really thought that would come through so quickly? Maybe you did. I know for me, it was a powerful, beautiful shock. Bolivia passes law of Mother Earth, and now the Mexico City has passed a similar referendum, a similar law that is part of their constitution, a similar proclamation. That similar, I often think of it, even though it may not have the same legal standing. To me, what that is equivalent to is the way that here in the U.S. we have chosen to say that corporations are people, that they have the same rights as human beings. So we see something happening in other areas that could really school us about what it is that we want to put into law, what it is that we want to here in the U.S. Speaking to my U.S. friends and community, this is just such a beautiful example of a very different kind of proclamation that we could make, and that may have legal standing. And imagine the ramifications of legal standing for giving the earth herself the rights of an individual. So opens new doors of perception. I was there in Standing Rock the weekend when this happened. The U.S. military, really strong leaders, powerful leaders from the U.S. military, Wesley Clark and a group of others, apologized to Native Americans for what had been done to them. Very, very powerful moment. So let's not normalize that. That was not normal. That was, well, in some ways it was sane. But this moment was something that was very, very powerful. So let's not forget that. Global tiger population increasing. I'll never forget when my niece, I remember looking at the studies and seeing that probably my niece, by the time she was in her 20s, there would be no tigers left. This was what had been projected about 15, maybe 20 years ago. And this headline, global tiger population increasing, really caught my attention because it was, thank God it was this shift in that reality. And of course, each of these headlines has its shadow, but to say, is the global tiger population, how long can that go on? But in any case, these are headlines that we can focus our attention on and really help open new awareness. So the intent of this process is to gather together a group of individuals who use a practice, and I'm going to do this in monthly segments, but the way I'm envisioning this is that if we do it for at least a year, and whoever wants to jump in for a month at a time can do that. If you want to stay in longer, you can. But that our purpose of this group is to hone a group of masterful visionaries who become very adept at helping to create and embody the world that we wish to create. So getting really clear on what we want and seeing that with all of our senses, really seeing it, feeling it, tasting it, touching it, getting really particular, getting really specific about what it is that we want to see in our world, and being able to take action from that place as if it is so. This is magic. This is pure magic. So we also educate ourselves on major world issues and see clearly with compassion and courage what it is that's happening in these issues. So as I see it, with this time frame where everything's so accelerated and everything is coming at us at once, even though we are most likely going to need to focus on other issues as well, if we tend to be part of this growing number of individuals who really feel the call to take action on many issues that we care about, who see the urgency of what is happening around us. And so we're really looking at how we can affect change on many fronts. It can be a very good thing to take a focused amount of time. A month feels almost luxurious to really focus on and educate ourselves on one particular issue. In my perspective, we can go very deeply that way. And if we continue to do this every month, we can begin to really cultivate a deeper awareness of what's happening with each of these issues. And what I believe is going to also happen is we're going to see how these issues intersect. And then we also connect inner trauma to outer trauma, and we bring healing to both. And the way we do that is through accepting and a willingness to feel. So again, so with this, and I'm going to describe the process in a moment of exactly how we do this, but when we come up with, every month we'll work with an issue, every month we will focus on something that we have great care for, that may be breaking our hearts. And when we choose this issue, so like for me, the issue currently has to do with Native Americans and how devastated their communities have been and continue to be because of the fact that they are right at the heart of so many of the most polluting toxic industries. This is something I care deeply about, so I'm going to focus on that issue. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually to look at very deeply, how bad is it really? And to not be afraid to look at that, to really look at the numbers of Native people who struggle with cancer, to look at the images of oil on the water, to hear about the way that the sky is red in these communities where there's so much fracking and so much methane, to really see the images of what's happening to the earth in those places. So my first thing is I'm going to be looking at that in a deep way, and I will take a certain amount of time that's compressed. I'm not going to focus all my time there, but I'm going to take maybe a couple of hours, maybe over a period of 3 or 4 days, to just focus in on what is the horrors of this issue, for lack of a better word. Because I think for many of us, especially those of us in the spiritual community, we are finding ourselves in a moment where it's really essential to look the monster in the face, to really learn to see things we may not have wanted to have seen in the past. There's something about this that I think is going to cultivate emotional resiliency and also emotional honesty. And so for myself, again, when I'm looking at what's happening at Standing Rock, I'm going to watch those videos that I didn't want to watch before of what it looks like when water protectors stand up directly to the industrial and military complex. And I'm going to look at what oil on the water looks like. I'm going to really connect to these things. So that's part of what we're going to be doing here, is being willing to really look at and feel the depths of the issue. Now, the other piece is that we connect that to what's happening inside of our own bodies, what's happening to our own being. So even though a lot of the focus on this is going to be the outer, a lot of what we create is going to be in the outer realms. It's going to be, and my experience has already been, that some of the deepest, powerful work that happens here is that we can continue to do this dance where we say, okay, so in my case, what is it about the way that indigenous communities, after everything they've been through in this modern culture that is constructed around principles and values that is almost directly opposed to what matters to earth-based peoples, how is it that they continue to be marginalized? How is it that they continue to be surrounded in toxins? How is it that their lands continue to be at the forefront of some of the most devastating environmental practices that serve the rest of the community, but that leave them with the toxins? So as I look at this, what does this reflect about my own inner being, my own psyche, my own body? And what I've come to think about with that is that, for example, with the pipelines issues, with fracking, I might ask myself, in what ways am I utilizing energy that poisons the rest of my system, and that really poisons the deeper part of me, the soul self, the part of me that's a little more slowed down, that's more connected to the earth, that's less busy all the time, that's not so much under the control of my colonized mind? How is it that deeper part of myself is continually under assault from my modern mind? So this is just one of the ways that we can think about this. Think about treaty lands. It's all about boundaries. Any kind of land conflict issue, which I've always been fascinated by. It's about boundaries. I've always had personal issues with boundaries. So that's something also that we'll be focusing in on. One of the things about this that I'm most excited about is that once we're willing to look deeply at what's not working, then at some stage we move more into the phase of, okay, what's possible here? How might this be able to shift and change? And then that's when we begin to start to do the research to say, well, who are the thinkers Who are the storytellers? What are the projects? What are the historical precedents to help me imagine that this issue is resolvable? And then we begin to become adept at looking for proof and finding proof that what we thought was impossible is actually inevitable in our lives and in our world. And so this is, for example, for me, I think literally, I have kind of an addiction to coffee, and also I can go into phases with my work where I go into an addictive pattern. And in both cases, what I leave behind is my more, it's like I leave my body. I'm not deeply connected to my soul, my sensuality. I'm so busy that I don't remember to breathe. So I feel when I do that I'm accessing a kind of a toxic kind of energy that's impacting my health and my well-being in a negative way. So so then my fear, my question might be, maybe it's impossible for me to ever overcome this addiction to overstimulation. And that to me relates to my issue as a whole. And so I might be starting to find proof. Well, how is it that I can find proof in my own life that I've been able to overcome other forms of addiction? And how can I continue to find reasons to believe that this is something that I can heal in myself? And then, of course, speaking of Native communities, how can I find the stories of hopefulness? How can I find really creative, amazing things that are happening within the Native community, the indigenous communities, and allies that can show a different way, that can actually show me a way forward? Where can I find proof that these longstanding issues can be resolved? And then we practice taking inspired action to accelerate the change we want to see outside inside. So, the more we do this research, we're going to locate projects, individuals that really inspire us, and we might want to give some funding for that. We might want to donate some of our time to them. In some other way, we might learn, because we're really interested in what's happening in Standing Rock, that we can help create we can help our city divest. So in any case, we think about, as we educate ourselves, we hone in on where we can actually take action. That's part of this too. And then I've already talked about a lot of this, but yeah. So we give, one of the ways we could start, if you don't know what your issue is yet, or if you do, give it a title, and I'll show you what my title is a little bit lower. And then you look at it deeply from different angles, and then you are willing to see it at every level, and then connect it to the inner outer. And when we start to look for proof and build a case around how it is that we think our impossible thing can be resolved, and that resolution can actually be inevitable, this is where the magic is. So if for example, I've actually been already steeped in this question about what's happening to Native communities. And already, because this has been my inquiry, when we focus our attention on something, magic happens. So already I've been working with a local Standing Rock group. I recommend doing something locally with these issues also. But over the course of that, I've been connecting with this Native American man who told me about this movement I had no idea of, which is that there are tribes in Oklahoma and other areas that were pushed west through the Trail of Tears and other programs that pushed Native people off their lands in the East, that there are many tribes now that are buying back land in the East in their original homelands. And that opened my mind to these just phenomenal possibilities. Like, what if there were just these enormous trusts that people were donating tons of money to help Native people reestablish in areas in their ancestral homelands? And what does that do? What is the power of that? So that was just something that came through because I've been focusing my attention and my energy there. So that's just one example. Again, I could go online and look for all different ways with that intent to look for how is it possible for this issue to be addressed. And so that's my game. And you look for the proof. And then you create a headline that declares the positive reality to be so. I'm not sure what my headline is yet. That's an ongoing process. But that's what we want to get to. And then the game is that as we come into what is the headline that describes what I actually want this reality to transform into, then we get into it and we really ask, really describe that with all of five senses. Like, how does it look? How does it feel? Just to get it so that it's so clear in our minds that we already live there. So, and then the intent for each person in this group is to create that headline and then a full length feature article inspired by the headline by the end of the month. That's our goal. That's our challenge. And so that's what I would challenge you to do. And maybe that some of us would prefer to do a vision board. Some of us might prefer to do maybe a short video or a painting or something else that engages our creative minds to make it so. But the key thing is that once you create it, can I look at it? Can I see it? Can I feel a strong sense for what this other reality that I'm wanting to help create, what that looks like, feels like? Okay, and then there are different ways we can do this. What I've come to decide is that each of us can make our own engagement plan for how we want to get to this point of writing our own feature-length article and headline. And in our engagement plan, we'll also want to decide what is my commitment, or what is my engagement level. And this can look different for everyone. But I would propose that for all of us that we do take some actions in the world of form, whether that actually, and that could involve, and I would highly recommend that it involve prayer and involve meditation. And for some of us, it may involve more of that and less feet on the ground. But I would recommend for all of us that we do take some kind of action that connects us into our own community, or that helps us connect with actual real life people in physical body to body in some way. Because to me, it feels like for many of us, if we're used to doing things at a distance, that's me. I've been doing that for a while now. But I also actually really love to work with people one-on-one and in groups in real time. Then whatever it is that you're used to doing, try to do a little bit of the opposite. So if you're always on the ground, try to do a little more prayer meditation, because part of what we're up to here is really broadening our capabilities. It's really helping ourselves to be more multidimensional in the ways that we address these issues. So you create your own engagement plan. What is it that I want to have accomplished over the next month in terms of actions I might take? Like, I'll take 3 actions, or I'll spend 10 minutes a day on this issue, or 20 minutes. Or, I'll spend 20 minutes journaling about why I feel really excited about what I'm doing, or I'll spend an hour writing about how this outer issue reflects my inner issue. So the key is, even if you joined this group and all you did was really define what your issue was and what about it breaks your heart, and say you spend 10 minutes a day on this issue, but you've got it in your mind, and then you create something at the end that may just be stream of consciousness, headline, and an article that you share with our group. Even if you just do that, my sense is that you are going to be so deeply changed by this process, because you've chosen to engage it in this way. You may decide to go way more deeply into it, but this is the key. Like, create an engagement process for yourself, or an engagement plan, and know that it may evolve and change. But it's good to start with some structure for many of us, not all of us, but some of us, maybe many of us, in order to have something to work with, so that we can get closer to where we want to go. But for some of us, we might just have that vision. Well, I know by the end, I want to feel like I've made a difference in this area. I know that by the end, I want to create something other people will really get a lot out of in terms of my headline and article, etc. So think about what you want to create, and then work backwards from there in terms of how you want to get there, or just anchor yourself so strongly that you can trust you're going to get to where you want to go, and then see how your actions flow from there. So again, my example, my title or headline is, the outer headline is, Native American communities will never successfully break free from colonial repression. So, and as I've said before, actually, it's been shifting and changing. This is like the broader one, but what might happen for you, like for me, it's kind of honing down into what's happening with native lands and fossil fuels based industries on native lands and how that affects them. But in any case, this is the more general one. And then my inner would be, my indigenous heart will never successfully break free from my colonizing mind, which again relates to what I had talked about before. And of course, I think you can tell by the way I'm talking about this that I'm not saying, or I'm not trying to minimize what's happening in real time for real people and real communities experiencing this devastation. This is not intended to diminish that in any way, shape, or form. What this is to do is to help us to understand we are connected to all of these things. And in my experience, when I begin to really make those connections between inner outer, if I'm willing to do my own work internally to bring healing to what's happening inside, I am going to be less likely to be triggered. If I am working externally in this issue, I am going to come into it with in a much stronger way. And I do believe that when we do that inner work, it does affect the outer in a powerful way. That does not necessarily mean that one replaces the other. I also think, though, that some of us will tend to work more in one realm or the other, and it's important not to have too much judgment there. And again, as you hear me saying, I think it can be very healthy for us if we tend to be more the type who offers prayer and meditation and doesn't really engage in the community physically as much. It might be actually really healthy to bring balance to our souls, to do a little bit more of that physical in the world work. It might actually make us feel happy. It might balance some part of our being. So we may always be a person who does more of the other and vice versa. If I'm a hardcore activist and I'm getting a little burnt out, I might really need to focus more in on the prayerful aspect. I might need to learn to take the bigger view and to really deal with some of the trauma that I've experienced from this work that I've been doing so intensively. So again, this is about bringing healing. It's about becoming more multidimensional, multifaceted as we approach these issues. Okay, so my engagement practice this month is that it's because I'm going to take a full month this month, but I've already been kind of steeped in it, but I'm going to focus more deeply this coming month with you. I will spend 10 to 20 minutes a day focused on Native issues, and again with the focus on what's happening on the land. Some issues, some around the treaty rights as well. I'm going to look at maps, I'm going to learn history, I'm going to see the current situation and just really scan the territory and learn more. And I will integrate into my morning prayers a prayer for Indigenous people everywhere. So I might have a map. I'm going to try to find a map. I've been wanting to create or find this that really shows the different Indigenous groups on the front lines, you know, like in the Amazon, the ones who are fighting the hydro dams, or the Huichols in Mexico that are fighting silver mining, or the Navajo who are fighting fracking, or just to have a map in my mind of the different beautiful, powerful landscapes that are under threat and the Native groups that are there, and just to send light and love to those places so I feel connected. And I do believe that that makes a difference. I absolutely do. So I'll do that as well. And then I also will create fact sheets, and this is something that I'm going to ask everybody in the group also create. Some are going to be more in depth than others. You know, this is the reality. So the fact sheets are going to be a place where I compress the most essential information that I learned that I can share with other people about current facts, the history, any miraculous resolutions of the issue, or any information that can help people maybe see how bad it is, but also see the positive trends that they can help support. And those fact sheets will also have resources or how people can help. And then I will create a full feature news article with an I'm Possible headline detailing the new outer reality. So I'm going to do that. And then my action is that I will give 5% of income to Indigenous groups I believe in. And I already have started to do that. So this is what I want to do. And then I will choose and follow through on 1 to 3 actions I can take locally and globally to manifest my vision. I already think one of those things is going to be to create a PowerPoint that's educational about what actually happened at Standing Rock and connect it into the astrological cycles. So, okay, and then my inner focus, again, is to go more deeply into what I've already started to look at, which is the connection between what's happening on Native lands and what happens in my own inner landscape. and I'm going to make an inevitable headline, or I'm possible headline, to describe the resolution of my own internal story as well. Okay, so just some ideas. Support for the process would be, some issues are going to be more amenable to this than others, but use maps, use charts, look at things physically, visibly, use a lot of different visual cues. That's going to tune in your imagination, and it's going to help you be more, it's going to help you access your inner visioning process more powerfully and connect to it in the right brain way as well as the left brain. So it's going to make you a more powerful creator in this realm. And then be curious, really try to understand the issue from many perspectives, not just the perspectives you're accustomed to looking at. Really try to take the broader view, as well as allowing yourself to feel into what the individual people, communities are facing, Earth, in these situations. And use many media sources, it's kind of related, to understand the issues. And you look at art, storytelling, history, again, look at lots of images. And then track what surprises you in the process so you can share that with others. And then you're going to use dream incubation to deepen the practice. I recommend that. So like before you go to sleep at night, write something, an intention. So for example, my intention tonight is to dream, is to have dreams or insight in my dreaming around the way that this what's happening to Native communities relates to my own personal landscape. Or in my dreaming tonight, I want to be given guidance into the best actions I can take to address this issue. Like that. And then in this class, you also will have the option, if we have the right number of people, to work with a buddy. So to have someone you can partner with. And you may have the same issue or a different issue. But yeah. Okay, and then be willing to face deep shadow. We've talked about that already. To really look at the issue more deeply. And then also to be willing to break past the pain. So you don't want to just live there. That's not our intent either. Move past it into healing and new possibilities, but be willing to go there. And then also keep a journal where you track miracles and synchronicities that happen because of your focus being here, that open new worlds and open new inner and outer awareness. And then again, the fact sheets might have most surprising facts, individuals, projects, case studies that most inspire you that other people should know about, articles, videos that educate and inspire, tangible ways people can help. And then if you're focused, this is just an extra point. If you're focusing on a local issue, I recommend also connecting it to global issues. So where is there a global network that's emerging that you can connect into? If your focus is global, then think about how this relates to what's happening around you in your own community. So again, this is helping us broaden our ability to look at these issues. Okay, and when I mentioned before, look at maps. So this is one example where, I'm going to want to have a lot of maps around me. So looking at where, this is not one of the best, but you can see it on the slide well. So what were the tribes that were original inhabitants of where I now live, and where are the other tribes located? So I can, again, begin to train my mind to look at things differently than the way I'm accustomed to, and this helps me in my process. And then also I'm looking at treaty lands. Check that out. That's the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty. Many, if not all, of these lands were not ever ceded by Native people. They were just taken by force. That kind of blows your mind, right? So maps, they're really powerful. Okay, so now is the part. I think that in the beginning I didn't really explain this well enough. Part of it is because this has been such an ongoing process that these new pieces have come in for me recently, and they're really exciting. So my sense is that there's going to be kind of a guiding issue for each month, and that's probably going to be the issue that I choose because I'm kind of facilitating this crazy monkey train. But so, and it's going to be Native American issues this coming month. But many of us are going to be choosing different issues, and that is part of what's so exciting about this, because if you can imagine, we're going to be a small group now, but even so, if you've got 3 or 4 people who have different issues, we are going to benefit, each of us, from the deeper work that each person does, the fact sheets they share, the headline, the article, the conversations we're going to have along the way, asking these deeper questions, sharing what it is that we're learning that's surprising, and we're going to see interconnections. And also we're going to share a little bit as well about our own inner journey and the inner, the outer connection. So my sense is that this collaboration, because we're going to be kind of doing our own thing and then coming back and sharing, is going to be really rich. So just consider, what are some issues you really care about? And these are just a few ideas. The monetary system. I keep thinking, what are my 12? One for each month of the year. The monetary system definitely is one. Fossil fuels to renewable energy economy. Hell yes, that is one I keep also, I want to focus on that for a month. Really, I should skip ahead to the bottom one, because for me, this is going to be the other one that is so big. Healing the wounds of war in the Middle East and what the U.S. has actively done there. For me, that would be really rank up there high. Actually, it's one of the first. Fossil fuels comes right up there because it's deeply related. Bridge urban and rural divide in politics. Wouldn't that be amazing? Transform polarization in the media. Heal oceans, rivers, and streams, and really create the context where their life can come back into them. I actually believe we can do that. Restore watersheds across the globe. Just imagine if we had people all over, like at the very top of the watershed, where you can work such magic if there were more people doing that. How about transforming the U.S. prison system, the educational system? How about restoring really alive, vibrant soils so that we could counter climate change, because the soil absorbs so much carbon that's all it would take. Reconciliation for Native people in the U.S. What would that look like for us to follow a model kind of like Canada, but learn from what they're doing that isn't working? So these are just some issues, and I'm sure that you have some that you care about. So I hope you will join us this Thursday, and it's going to be, I know, and I've sensed this has been building, and I'm really excited. I'm going to be with you, creating together and looking more deeply at these issues. It's really time, and I believe this can be a joyful process, even if some parts of it might be hard. That it's time for us to collaborate in this way, and to deepen our knowledge, to educate ourselves, and also to just become, again, I keep feeling it's about becoming multidimensional and being willing as spiritual beings to bring our deep presence and awareness into the world. I also see this as the reemergence of the divine feminine, that she's not above it, she's part of it, and she brings her light and her grace and her awareness into the earth realm, and so that she can penetrate it with her love, and she can transform it with the power of her deepened perception and her willingness to engage. So from a spiritual perspective, and also from great heart, and with her human hands. So this is us. And other resources are Where to Invade Next is a film by Michael Moore. He explores a lot of wonderful models of what other countries are doing that we can learn from. Really inspiring. Pronoia is a great book by another amazing astrologer, Rob Bresney. It's Pronoia is the Antidote for Paranoia. It's a very inspiring book where he really talks about how, again, we can hone our attention on what's working. And The World is As You Dream It by Chris Perkins. He helped to found the Pachamama Alliance, and he worked with indigenous communities in South America, and from them really, again, learned this principle that we can dream another world, and we need to. The dream that's been dreamed for us is a nightmare, so we can dream a new one. And the Pioneers and TED Talks are also great ways to begin to open your mind to what's possible. And so this is what we're doing. And I just always loved this quote that Rob Bresney uses on his website, his Mirabilia report. Mirabilia are events that inspire wonder, marvelous phenomena, small miracles, beguiling ephemera, inexplicable joys, changes that inspire quiet awe, eccentric enchantments, unplanned jubilations, sudden deliverance from boring evils, from the Latin mirabilia, marvels. And it's a little bit flowery for what we're talking about perhaps, but I love that saying. It makes me think, makes me understand there are miracles around us at all times. And what if we really did learn to see them when they emerge and really cherish them? And what if we began to be miracle makers ourselves because we have the ability and we've honed our focus on what's possible and moving ever more clearly and steadily towards those things. So thank you for being with me in this time, and have a beautiful, beautiful night.